Hey everybody, it's Mr. Sproul. Today we're going to talk about the return to normalcy after World War One. So normalcy in government. The 1920 election of Warren Harding and simpler days before war. So this was post World War One, before World War Two. 1920 was kind of a rough time. Just coming off a war. There's labor strikes. The Spanish flu was going around, and people want to break. People want to take it easy, and Harding is that candidate. He's mild mannered. He promised quieter times, and he delivered with his isolationist policies. He decided, well, America wanted to kind of keep to themselves. They wanted to take it easy and not be involved in anybody else's mess. And so with that, they wanted to prevent another world war. Just coming off of one, it was rough, and everybody's developing these huge warships and navies and everything, and we don't want to be a part of that. We don't want anything like that happening. So we get together, 1922, United Kingdom, France, Italy, and Japan, in Washington D.C. We all get together and sign the Five Power Treaty, which set limits on the sizes of ships and the number of ships to prevent a naval arms race. So the Secretary of State Charles Hughes, he kind of backed this. He urged, he was the one. He wanted to set limits. He wanted limits on ships and navies because he foresaw a naval arms race and did not want that to happen. Another treaty or another pact that was signed was the Kellogg-Briand Pact. Um, since the United States never joined the League of Nations, the French decided they wanted a multilateral treaty, something across the board for everyone to agree to keep peace. And almost every nation agreed to resolve all disputes peacefully. However, there was no way to enforce this. It also did not align with other treaties such as post-war treaties and the Monroe Doctrine, and it did nothing to stop wars of self-defense, so it was pretty ineffective. It was kind of just a piece of paper where everybody was like, yeah, I promise not to start a war. Um, and nobody really wanted to start a war anyways, but this didn't really do anything to stop that. So America returned to nativist policies, instituted a new high tariff, and returned to isolationism. And so we weren't, nobody was trading with us. France, United Kingdom wasn't really importing anything. Um, and immigrants. There was a ton of immigrants coming over from Europe, and a lot of people really didn't like it. And it was discriminatory quota system. It was racist. And National Origins Act of 1924 put a limit on the number of immigrants that were allowed in per country. So here we see the tariff wall. You see foreign products on the right are shut out, and then on the left there, the American products are shut in. So, and you see on the left, there's America's full of products there. And so Ford Macomber tariff in 1922 protected American business from foreign competition. So you can see that in that photo there. Made it impossible for Britain and France to sell their goods to the U.S. The international financial system under the Dawes Plan and the Young Plan. International and financial system. Dawes was a Chicago banker and appointed head of the Reparations Committee to figure out how Germany would pay back everyone for damages after World War One. He proposed a plan for Germany to pay a reduced amount each year as their economy improved. They allowed Germany to borrow the money from foreign banks, aka America, to pay reparations to France and the United Kingdom, so that France and the United Kingdom could then in turn pay America back for their war debts. Young was the head of General Electric and a member of the Dawes Committee. He helped come up with a financial total for Germany to have to pay, and America continued to loan the money to Germany, and Germany kept paying reparations. So it's all cyclical. United States loans the money to Germany, so we get interest on that, and then Germany pays the Allies, and the Allies pay us, and we get the money back. So it's pretty beneficial for the United States. And here you can see the National Origins Act, the Immigration Act of 1924. You can see people funneling in from Europe, and everybody's trying to get in. And you see Uncle Sam here; he's closing the gate. It says 3% there, so he's letting a very limited number of people in. Let me read the notes. So labor unrest. Working conditions were poor, wartime inflation. So during the war, there was a big need. There was a business was booming, and people were making money, and it was good. And then after the war ended, that was kind of that was not there anymore. So people weren't making as good wages, and people were being laid off. Technological unemployment. Like with the steel strike, there was people that were being laid off because machines were doing their jobs now, so not as many people they didn't need to hire as many people, and this led to strikes. So in 1919, there was a general wave of unionism and reform called the American Labor Movement. People went on strike for better wages and better working conditions. Boston police went on strike requesting recognition of their trade union, higher wages, and better working conditions. During the strike, Boston had several nights of lawlessness. The state guard was called in, and the strikers were called deserters and communists for leaving their people. The steel strike happened the same year. Workers were being fired and paid lower wages because of technological advances, and they wanted to unionize. The coal miners went on strike because they had a wage agreement during the war. Now that the war was over, the agreement was over, and they wanted their wages. So Attorney General Mitchell Palmer invoked the Lever Act, which is a wartime measure that made it a crime to interfere with the production or transportation of necessities. So this made the coal miners going on strike, made it illegal. He was trying to prevent them from going on strike. And the next day they went on strike because he did that. And it went on for 3 weeks, and coal miners ended up getting higher wages. They got a 14% increase in wages there. So you see 90% of steel workers on strike, union chiefs plan. John L. Lewis, so he united mine workers. He was the one that really advocated for them. He kept the strike going, and moderate gains despite public opinion against unions. At this time, unions were not thought very highly of. The public did not like unions. They claimed they were communists and all this. And he stood up for them anyways, and they ended up succeeding. He got the gains they were looking for. So strikers were labeled communists. Labor unions weakened. So the unions, nobody liked the unions, and they started losing power. Less people joined the union, and so they weakened. Open shop system does not require union membership, so a lot of people moved to that. Welfare capitalism. Business favored policy that believes the private sector can provide social welfare programs more effectively than the federal government. So that means private sectors can treat their workers better than a union or a federal government plan can. The Red Scare. So this was all during the first Red Scare. The Russian Revolution and fear of Bolshevism was widespread. Anybody who was not aligned with the U.S. was in danger of being labeled a communist, and that's what happened to the strikers. This weakened the union, and capitalism takes over. And so the fear of communism, the Russian Revolution of 1917 was the abolition of the monarchy and the establishment of the Soviet Union. Vladimir Lenin was the leader of the Bolshevik movement that launched the coup to overthrow the monarch, and he wanted the rest of the world to do the same. Communist cry of worldwide revolution. He wanted communism worldwide. The U.S. Communist Party was created shortly after, and this was caused by the split of the Socialist Party. So here you see in the New Yorker, this figure in red here looks like a skeleton, like death, holding up a graph. It's the New York Stock Exchange, and it's down tubes. And the hand that will rule the world, one big union. So this is sticking up for unions, workers trying to stand together to have a say for higher wages and better working conditions. After the creation of the U.S. Communist Party, we see the Palmer raids. The Department of Justice arrested leftists and communists under the leadership of Attorney General Mitchell Palmer, who appoints J. Edgar Hoover to the Justice Department Bureau of Investigation. They made a ton of arrests, and they were violent, and the arrests exceeded the number of warrants issued, and just a ton of violations of civil liberties. And here in the photo you see, I'm sick and tired of this nonsense. And it's Uncle Sam. He was whooping up on union labor and the coal strike. So you can see that was a unpopular opinion to stand with the Union. Sacco and Vanzetti. Nicola Sacco and Bartolomeo Vanzetti were two Italian immigrants convicted and executed for murder. They were anarchist immigrants, so with the nativism and the Red Scare, they were just persecuted for who they were, and they were wrongfully executed simply because they were anarchist immigrants. So the nativism, the growth of the Klan and revival of nativism is kind of what led to their execution. So Harding and Coolidge. Warren Harding was the easy choice in 1920. He was easygoing. He had no firm stance on anything, and he was more of a figurehead than anything else. He was all about capitalism, and he gave tax breaks to the wealthy because he thought the wealthy were the ones starting and expanding businesses. He did appoint the Treasury Secretary, who reformed the nation's tax system and cut the federal budget. So he did some good things for the country. He didn't really do anything outstanding, but he didn't have a negative legacy. Although he did have a couple of fumbles. He appointed some of his buddies from back home in Ohio, and they made some mistakes. They accepted bribes and illegally allowed oil drilling on federal land in Wyoming. And so he wasn't directly connected to the bribe, but the person that he appointed was. So you see Vice President Coolidge here and Secretary of Commerce Hoover. Position meant to foster, promote, and develop foreign and domestic commerce. Here you see the Ohio Gang. This was Harding and his buddies from back home in Ohio. The most powerful gang of all time. May have been the one that took over the U.S. government in 1921. So the Teapot Dome scandal, you see the oil scandal, this figure here on the right. Albert Falls, the Secretary of the Interior, and he allowed private companies to go on federal land, government-owned oil-rich lands, leased to private oil companies for less than their value. He allowed this and accepted a bribe to do it. Not good. Harding and administration was embarrassed. Several officials were imprisoned. So that was kind of a smear on the campaign. The Teapot Dome in Wyoming, you see why it was called the Teapot Scandal. The rock formation there kind of looks like a teapot. And there was 2 places in California where that happened as well. There was three places there. Harding died pretty suddenly in office. He was replaced by Coolidge as the VP. Coolidge was pro-business also, but he was kind of the same way, laissez-faire, hands-off policies. He didn't he didn't really pass any significant laws or have any redeeming policies. He was just easygoing. Keep it cool with Coolidge. Do nothing, Cal. He was known for a scandalous love affair. So, that was kind of a smear on his campaign too. Says, so what if I sleep around? My entire cabinet are crooks, and I'm totally clueless. At least you still believe me, Florence, right? And that's his wife, Florence, there. Says, yes, dear. And she looks upset. It says Teapot Dome scandal right there on the front page of the newspaper. Keep it cool with Coolidge for president. And that's it. So there'll be a couple questions that accompany this as well, and I'll post those. And there's also going to be an assignment, and I'll put that on here as well. So thanks for listening.